You're listening to the MLS Fantasy Insider, bringing you weekly tips, tricks, and advice for the official MLS Fantasy game.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. I know it's been a little while since we've been back on, but really excited to have everybody back here with us. So the social has gone out on Twitter X, and so give me just a second. I'll push it out on Discord so that everyone knows that we are back. Let's see here.
Too quiet.
Vamp. I'm posting the message on Discord, getting everything out there.
Yeah.
Say hello to the people. There we go. Send message now, and we're like, all right. So we've got the message out on Discord. We've got the message out on Twitter. So we're super excited for you all to join us tonight. We will get this thing started and jump right into the future of fantasy. Hello and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our Leagues Cup break episode focusing on the future of MLS Fantasy. This episode is brought to you by the patrons who support the MLS Fantasy Insider. There's nothing going on, so this one's all about you guys. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Learn more about our project over at patreon.com/MLSFI. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partner in fantasy, Ashley Savage, and a whole corral, a whole bench, if you will,
Everyone
of guests right here, special guests, frequent guests. So we've got Tyler Norman, we've got Christian Ward, and our very special guest tonight, Schuyler Redpath, who some of you may know, some of you may not know, but super excited to have him on here as our inside connection with MLS. Hello, everyone.
would we call this our five-a-side? I mean, I feel like who's playing?
Five-a-side. I don't know if we want this to be our five-a-side.
I know this is the next Olympic sport, five-a-side MLS fantasy discussion.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can do that.
How
have you all been?
Red in here.
Hit the record.
Oh, hit the record button.
Oh, damn it, Reid.
Recording in progress.
It's been a while.
I know.
It's been a
We're
while.
all out of practice.
This
a little rusty.
This is good, but yeah, I mean, people aren't in chat, or are they in chat saying I just wasn't looking at it? So it's like, they did it. Christian said it in chat. See?
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's okay. We'll have a funny
4 minutes ago.
Well, that's you. You were on the show. You just gotta say it. You hear Ashley.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So you all have probably seen either the thumbnail or the messages on Twitter or on Discord about what the episode is tonight, and you may have surprised you, but this is Leagues Cup, so nothing's been going on for several weeks, and we're getting back into the flow of fantasy. Of course, next week we'll be coming to you with our next round 23 preview, but tonight we wanted to have something to help ease us in, and this is talking about the future of MLS Fantasy. And usually we wait till near the end of the season to talk about this, but I thought it would be fun now. As everyone knows, we had some changes this year, and as with all changes, there have been some bumps along the road, and we're not here to talk about that tonight. We've talked about that in previous episodes, and so we're not here to do any of that because we know what's going on. Right now, we're here to talk about what the goals were, how things have been received, and with hope as much as we can at this point, talking about the future. That's why Schuyler is here with us. And for those of you who have listened to the show for a while and have been a part of our community, y'all probably know Schuyler. Draft Kicks. That's what he says online. Crypto Kicks sometimes, depending on how you interact with him. He is the man that 99.9% of the time is behind the @MLS Fantasy Twitter account. That other 0.1% sometimes is me, but it is usually Schuyler who is manning the official @MLS Fantasy account, and so we're super excited to have him with us tonight. And I also wanted to give him a chance to introduce himself to those of you who may not know him and how he helps bridge this connection with our community and MLS. So, Schuyler, what's up?
What's going on, Reid? Yeah, thanks for the intro. Maybe a little roundabout way of saying I'm old, but I'll take it. I have been around MLS Fantasy for a little while. Probably going
Former
on
champion.
Former champion. Yeah, probably been playing 19 to 20 years, somewhere along that range at this point, which just sounds crazy when you think about it. Pretty much right out of college, I want to say around 2004, 2005, picked the game up and was interested in MLS as a league as a whole, just enjoyed watching it, and then found out there's a fantasy game. So geeked out to that, and here we are today. So
and it's been so Schuyler and I also go back to some of it's not the beginnings of this game, but pretty close to some of the middle of it, where he and I have both worked with MLS, providing content and going on from there. And like I said, Schuyler is still helping run the official account at this time, and he provides some connection to us with the developers of the game. Can you talk more about what your role is now with MLS related to fantasy?
Sure. So yeah, you mentioned winning the grand prize. That was back in 2011, I believe. So back then, the grand prize was a VIP trip to the All-Star game, which I think 2012 was Philadelphia MLS All-Stars against Chelsea, which is super cool experience. I mean, they really did it up big, and just stayed in the same hotel as the players, got to go to all the pre-parties, the after parties. Somewhere along the way, ended up just kind of bumping into some of the guys from MLS headquarters and talking to them about how I won the trip, what I was doing there. They thought it was super cool. Said, hey, fantasy, obviously, weren't you writing for the league? And so that was kind of my foot in the door. One thing led to another. Ended up reaching out to that contact the next week. And then next thing you know, I was writing fantasy articles for MLS, which was just, again, when you break it all down like that, it just sounds kind of crazy, but that's how it played out. Definitely a few more pieces to that puzzle along the way, but yeah. So started out as mostly a fantasy contributor, just submitting articles as far as like rankings or how to play the game, just basic stuff. And now it's kind of turned into a little bit more of, hey, if they're wanting advice on, what should we do about this or what should we do about that, then they'll ping some things off of me. A lot of times I ended up pinging them off of you guys in Discord or Twitter or whatnot. But yeah, so my role now is pretty much the same. I'm still doing the rankings. I'm still helping with some of the social media. There's more, I guess you could say, more players behind the scene. I think you said I was running like 99% of social, but it's probably closer to about maybe 30% now. We've got some more, like I said, there's more resources helping out in that aspect, but it is cool to bring you on to do the fantasy Q&As. I think that's something that they're hoping to continue to do throughout the rest of the season, maybe do a couple more of those. But yeah, I mean, other than that, just kind of try to connect with the fantasy community as best as I can between the league office and just the actual user base. So I'd say that's a pretty good explanation in a nutshell of my role currently.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen it, I mean, that's literally what happening. Like, that's been the great just joy about our community, as we've been able to keep these connections. And so Schuyler has come in and does throw these ideas off chat. We've had other representatives in the past from MLS who have been involved and watched the chat, and so that's really something that's been a strength of this community, is that we have had that connection. We can get feedback back, and some of you all have interacted with Schuyler when you've had problems or issues. He's helped us escalate things or help push out that information to the community. Whenever we're able to send out some information, sometimes a little bit earlier, it's because we have these connections, and Schuyler's been a crucial point in doing that. So that's a big roundabout way to sort of say he's got some inside information. He's got an empath, and that's what we're hoping to help everyone tonight look a little bit behind the curtain. We will go ahead and say we're going to be very respectful of that special relationship that Schuyler does have. He, of course, this isn't just everything's wide open, talk about all the trade secrets, but our goal tonight is just to hope that people can understand a little bit more about the thought process that goes into talking about changes, deciding about changes, and some of why changes happened this year. And so that's where I think I'd like to start first with this conversation, which I've accidentally just closed out of my rundown, and I've completely, as I was trying to get back and just make this a seamless transition, it did not happen. But that's good. Let's get all of the weird stuff out of the way during the comeback in. So yeah, that's how I'd like to talk about it, is one, just personally, Schuyler, can you give us a little bit of insight on why we saw some of these changes this year? I know we've talked about before, but just hear from you why we saw some of these changes this year in the game, and then just initially just how it's kind of played out for you, just personally, with so far 2/3 of the way through the season, just how it's impacted the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say just to start off, just for the record, that I personally have no pull or no say in the actual decision-making process of, the overall grand scheme of things, such as stat providers. I can help out. I'm a fantasy guy. I'm a fantasy contributor, so I try to stay in my lane as far as that goes. But yeah, so it's apparent that the stat provider changed from last year to this year. I believe it was Opta was the stat provider for MLS last year. Now it's Sportech, which, again, I'm a fantasy contributor, so I don't really know too many of the ins and outs as far as what happened with that deal going down. I do know, just from some of talking with MLS and some of the publications, when they made that deal with Sportech, was just that the ultimate goal was that they were continuing to try to engage fans in new ways, grow the league's fan base, and felt like that was their best avenue as far as a stat provider goes. For fantasy purposes, it's obviously brought big changes to the scoring, to gameplay in general, really just, strategy, all of it. So I feel like for the first few weeks, it was a little bit of a feeling out process, right? Everybody was trying to work through the new setup and, try to kind of gauge who to target, which it became pretty clear pretty early on. Attackers were the key pieces this season. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different game this season, so to speak. But for me, it was, once we did work through some of those kinks in the beginning, I liked it. I felt like it put some of the new players like on a level playing field compared to some of the veterans like us who might know all the ins and outs going into a season.
Yeah.
It kind of, where there's like, if there were no changes to gameplay whatsoever, I feel like that might put new players to a little bit a disadvantage compared to, say, everybody on this board, anybody that's watching on YouTube, listening on the podcast. Feel like the veteran players have an edge, which, maybe that definitely speaks for something. I mean, players that are committed to the game, that have been playing for a long time. But I also feel like for me, it was fun. I welcomed the challenge of something new. And yeah, I like the fact that it kind of leveled the playing field out a little bit. And I tried to just have some fun with it and roll with what we had in front of us. It was kind of my mindset.
And so I know that Sportech's doing the stats. That is not the same vendor that's doing the fantasy game, right?
It's not the same vendor, so to speak, but I believe it's all that they provide, all the stats that the vendor, the vendor that runs the game processes everything.
It pushes over. Do you know if there are any stats that aren't being sent to the fantasy vendor that maybe could in the future for future years, or is there anything unused that might be on the radar?
Definitely. I think that was, in the beginning when everybody was kind of realizing, oh, this stat's gone, this stat's new, then that was already starting to be bounced around in Slack, bounced around with some of the developers and emails, just saying, hey, what's going on here? This has kind of caused a little bit of a stir amongst the fantasy community. So that was already put in motion probably from day one.
They do
me
see
being
us.
me being included, I know you're thrilled about this one, Reed, but I was definitely not thrilled about the double assist being removed. So that was one of the first ones that I pointed out.
I was so happy
What
about
happened to those
that.
double assists? Oh, I know. Several people were. I was not. But yeah, no. So that was already a conversation that's been had and is still ongoing. And I think it's pretty clear, and not just from me, but I believe people have actually reached out through the contact page, and it's been pretty evident, voice their opinion on what stats they want to see come back. And so I feel like that's something that will definitely continue to be worked on in the, even as the season progresses, and then in the off season ahead of next year, hopefully we'll see some of those reincorporated.
That's awesome. And of course, you guys feel free to jump in with any follow-ups. I'm just kind of going through the list right here. You had mentioned the Slack chat. What kind of general reactions have the other developers, like the actual MLS? What did they have at the beginning of the season? It's great to hear that they were seeing the community and reacting to that. But what is there anything else that they've been saying about what they expected, what they didn't expect, or just how something's played out, or an idea that maybe someone had that could have been viable?
Yeah, I think, again, even with the fantasy game, it was a feeling out process. I think for some of the folks on that side of the game, or just in their role in general, then just as we're having to deal with some of that, then there were probably some things that popped up that they might not have anticipated originally, and so kind of just have to work through it as it comes across, kind of thing. So, not saying people were surprised by it, but just saying it's kind of a whole new setup for everyone across the board, not just fantasy. And so I think there were several things that people had to adjust to a little bit on the fly, and just try to make the best decisions where needed, and kind of the critical moments where they were needed.
So it sounds like it's pretty fair to say that this was really looked at as kind of a reset year, and like the base, and then from here we're being able to just start improving from that, because we didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'd say, even if I'd like to get on and look at the box scores or the game logs, the match logs on MLSsoccer.com and on the app, and you can tell it's just completely different than the look that it had last year. And so that has to do with the change in the stat provider. And there's, there might be some inaccuracies there, which there were in years past too. But when you see an assist pop up for somebody that took a shot that hit off the crossbar and somebody follows up, then that's not an assist. But if you go there and look at it and you're playing fantasy, then you see that and you're like, oh yeah, I got my assist. And then you realize later on, I mean, you probably get as many messages as I do with people saying, hey, why didn't this guy get credited for an assist? I'm like, well, go back and watch the video. He kicked the ball off somebody's head and then it bounced back onto Messi's foot, and Messi scored. So.
Yeah, that is one thing I do
all the time.
I do miss about Opta is like they had that web page like defining everything. So it was like, oh, this and this has to happen before this triggers, and I haven't seen that.
And it was within minutes too. It was really quick.
Yeah, so I do, and so I still kind of default back to some of those old definitions that we're more familiar with. Like, well, this is usually what we're looking for, guys. So, but yeah, no, I think we all get some of those things. Yeah, so these changes were really just kind of the result of that stat provider. So, but going forward and just looking at some of the history, what tends to be the motivating factors behind changes to the fantasy game when they're discussed? I know people talk about the casuals, and people talk about the hardcore players, and just people talk about all that general participation and growth, but from what you've seen with the chats, like what do people tend to be focused on when they're like, what do we want to change with the game?
I think we've seen, other than the stat provider change, I think we've seen over the past 2-3 years, there really hasn't been too much change from year to year. I mean, we've kept the unlimited transfers in place, kept most of the scoring in place, other than obviously this season. And so I feel like we've been in a little bit of a good space as far as everybody's happy with the setup. We don't want to change much as long as everybody's engaged and We've got people that want to play the game. And so, I think they will take a lot of the feedback I pass on, a lot of the feedback that they get from the contact us section on the fantasy page, which might not be something that many people are aware of. I think they put a disclaimer on there that, basically don't email us unless it's super important, that kind of thing. But you'd be surprised how many times I've heard, somebody pop up and say, hey, we've got this message from this user. So it is those messages are seen and they're being read. And so I feel like between some of that feedback they get there, between some of the feedback that I pass on, and then there's several ideas just that I've heard bounced around from different people in the office that might have a kind of an outsider's perspective. They might not be as fully engaged in fantasy as we are, and some of the stuff sounds outlandish, some of it sounds doable, some of it sounds pretty cool, but end of the day, it's kind of just just everybody kind of throwing some ideas into the pot and seeing if there's anything that really jumps out more than another. If it's anything worthwhile, then I think there's several people kind of working on it. I might even reach out to some of you. I think last year I even threw out the idea of the draft fantasy, kind of similar to like NFL fantasy, where you have a group of 10, 12 players and you draft your team, and you're stuck with your team throughout the whole year, other than trades or picking people up off the wire. And so I think at one point then MLS was kind of considering that as a maybe one of the main fantasy games, and possibly even taking over the game as we know it now. And I think several of us, once we kicked the idea around, just didn't think it would play out just kind of how they had in mind that playing out. Like, it's just not the same as like NFL fantasy or Major League Baseball, to where you really have that kind of player pool to make that work.
Yeah, you got the players, but the viable player pool gets
Right.
dries up pretty quick. Yeah. I mean, this is an unfair question, so feel free to be like, yeah, pass. But I am really intrigued by like any outrageous ideas that someone may have pitched as a question that are like, no. If you remember any, I'd love to hear just some of the just outlandish things.
Man, I'd have to go back through the archives to really come up with any of the outlandish stuff. But it's just stuff that, like, once you start processing it out loud, it could even be as many people as us, like on a Zoom call, and it sounds good and sounds great, and then you run into this roadblock and you're like, wait, so if this happens, and it just kind of it just kind of nullifies everything, and you're like, why did we even just talk about this for like 20 minutes? Trying to think of anything that jumps out off the top, but it definitely, there's that conversation's definitely gone there before, where sit there bouncing some ideas around, and then you're just like, no, that's not going to work.
Like formation changes, maybe like having more than 3 forwards or something like that.
Let me hack 0. Let me do all this. No, it's true. No, it's okay. It's okay if you don't remember. But I was like, oh, I wonder what people are really throwing out crazy stuff.
Yeah, I might have something pop up as we go along here, but nothing jumps out immediately, or maybe I just don't want to throw anybody under the bus.
They're going to try to start so many crazy stuff now. Sorry, so sorry. That's what's going to happen. Go ahead.
I do want to say one of my favorite like recent updates has been the FCL. It's been absolutely amazing and very engaging for even like new people. They can come in and get in and qualify for FCL really quickly. So that was a very good update.
Yeah, it's another one, just going back to trying not to mess with something too much if it's already seems to be running along smoothly. Like, got a lot of really good feedback about Fantasy Champions League, and like you said, Ranch, it's kind of one of those things where if you don't get registered before the season starts, then you're not completely out of the game. You can still sign up a few weeks in, qualify for Champions League, still have $500 up top to play for. So yeah, definitely is just kind of an added little bonus, kind of side game, I guess, if you will.
So we've had a couple of questions in chat that one of them is asked a lot, and so I'll ask it just so, and you may not have an answer, and again, that's fine. But a lot of people see promotion on the field and hear promotion during the Apple streams and that for Pick'em. And so at times people feel like that's the priority. And so there's just some wondering of why there aren't more mentions of just like, hey, we also have a fantasy game. Is that ever something that people have talked about, or is it just because the Pick'em is probably easier or different provider? Is that anything you've ever seen, chat?
Yeah, so I feel like from what I know, and I'm not 100% on the ins and outs of this one either, but I do believe that Pick'em is through a different provider, and that might be a contractual obligation is kind of what I see.
Oh, that's a good point.
And it might also be something that MLS might be trying to promote to possibly draw on a betting partner or something of that nature, just trying to promote a game that could engage fans, maybe be able to interact on live TV is kind of some of the things that I've heard bounce around. So that's about as much as I know. I just know that they kind of treat it completely separate than fantasy. But from my perspective, I feel like fantasy should definitely get promoted a little bit more. I think that there's avenues there that MLS could partner with some if they wanted to partner with. I mean, they partnered with So Rare previously. They partnered with DraftKings previously. Not sure how much that's helped the fantasy game. But I think that if there's the right pieces in place, and I feel like somehow fantasy can also be worked in, or that angle can be worked in.
It's always funny because it's usually near the beginning of the games whenever some of that stuff gets plugged, and my wife will be doing something and she'll just hear me go, and she'll be like, they didn't say it again, did they? I'll be like, no. And then she just laughs at me and we go on, but that does happen. The other question that someone had, I know you definitely get into this, and they said, why does it seem like it takes a while to get new players added into the game sometimes?
Partly because I'm covered up, and at Verx's might be at Verx's soccer games or on the road with him, carting them all over the country.
Man,
no, a lot of it is yeah. Well, speaking of recent players, and I know there's several that are in the hopper. You might even see them pop into the game this week, but I just know most of the people that are working on the fantasy side are just kind of heads down with Leagues Cup now. I think there's a Leagues Cup bracket that they've been working on. And so everybody's just been working with that game. So I'd say sometimes it's just a matter of priorities. And I think if it's a pretty well-known player, they'll get more priority to go into a game than like a second string keeper.
Yeah.
So that a lot of times, maybe might be a kind of well-known to us, but under the radar might be kind of a center defensive midfielder that is not just a household name that might get overlooked or something. So something that I might be able to help push along a little bit more too, on my side. So just trying to kind of nudge people is, like I said, stay in my lane, but also try to also do my job as far as, hey, people want to use this guy on their fantasy team. Can we get him into the game?
Yeah.
I mean, my one request is if you could just go ahead and make Bupenza 4.0 and maybe swap his picture with like a Mike Tyson Punch-Out-esque beat-up version of his picture, like I think that would be perfect.
That's
I'll try, man.
idea.
I don't think it's gonna happen though.
Can hope.
I can't go in and edit prices for what that's worth. Prices that are already set. I can have a say in what a player's price starts at, but I can't go in and change positions, change pricing, that kind of thing.
You
But I'll see if I
request
can
it?
change the headshot to Mike
That'd be good.
Tyson.
That'd be perfect. Yeah, let's just make it all beat up. Yeah, like all that. That would be fantastic. So that's good. So safe scrub going forward though, everyone right there. Bupenza, don't have to worry about that one.
Yeah. Christian, sorry, Reid. Christian was asking if I can.
Sorry.
You ask if I can request those changes.
Mm. Yeah.
So I can request them. I have made several requests as far as players that exit the league, like Shaqiri, for instance, and if it were up to me, then I might just say, hey, let's take him out of the game altogether. But I mean, I do think that there's some value in having some of those guys float around a little bit. I mean, for obviously
I
for
agree.
scrubbing purposes.
What I'm saying is maybe request to have their price changed to 4 if they're confirmed left the league.
Mm.
I want to get braggy again, but who cares about money anymore?
Right.
Like,
Oh,
New
I mean,
players, I guess.
new players.
yeah,
You know,
you're right.
there's a
Yes, I
reason
guess.
to do it.
yeah, sure. Okay.
There's our suggestion this year is like maybe after every beginning of the new Champions League quarter, current players have a bit of a tax levied on their team, so that makes it a bit more fair. How about that, Ashley?
Sure. I mean, remember when I almost panicked made a new team? I might would have cared about money.
What do you mean almost pan?
Here's the
Almost
part where we hear
panic
about how
mode.
Ashley beat me in the head-to-head.
Yeah,
Should have beat me in the head-to-head.
that's correct. Thank you so much. I wasn't going to
Knew it
bring
was
it up.
knew it was coming.
We know. There's the asterisk next to the points. But no, that's actually a good segue. Talking about what you're able to request, what you're able to do. Is there anything like on your short list right now that you already want to pitch? It's like, hey, this could be something cool to consider for next year. Maybe not a change, but a stat that you really want to have, or just some sort of feedback that you've seen that you think has some good legs that could go over really well with the community.
Yeah, I think for one of my main things that I've really been trying to push in the past 2-3 years is really just trying to open the game up earlier. Just open up registration earlier so that we have ample time to get some numbers in, tinker with our teams a little bit, get a feel for maybe any changes, knock on wood. So yeah, that's one of my main things I'm going to keep trying to push for, I'd say, in that aspect. And a lot of that kind of comes down to maybe a little bit of resources, who might I be dealing with at that point. You guys have seen the Ben Bears, James Ballows, Ben Jottas. I mean,
Oh,
there's
gosh.
several folks that have been kind of in that position or that role that I deal with directly. A lot of the fantasy game aspects. And so, yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's no secret that there's some turnover there. And so a lot of that comes back to if who I'm dealing with at that time. And it's not just one person. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts across the board. But trying to get everything in place to open the game on time. But when I say everything, you're talking about all the legal side of everything, the terms and conditions, the pricing, positions, rosters, all that stuff. So there's a lot that goes in on the back end to opening the game up, but that's just one thing that I know for just as far as I'm concerned, like I feel like that's would be a huge benefit to drive the game and to push the game to get more players, as if we can open it up a little earlier.
Yeah, Black and Red mentioned and has said in chat, push for Super Bowl Sunday as a start time. I remember there was a time when it did kind of open up close to the Super Bowl. I mean, that wasn't too far back that it did. I would love if
talking about the promoting the game. Let's get a Super Bowl commercial going. MLS Fantasy Super Bowl commercial.
Jeez.
I'll get
I mean,
Ranchinator up there.
If we
yeah,
can't
I'll
give me
do it.
my 11 points back, I don't know how we're getting a Super Bowl ad.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Maybe that's
Still
one
on
of
her
those local,
11 points.
the local ad slots that you get.
Tyler, don't you dare.
I mean, this sort of is a spoiler for our next segment where we talk about like some of our hopes and dreams. But I loved seeing some of like this year, and maybe they did it last year, but it was more prevalent in my mind this year. Like some of the player price leaks with FPL, as I was kind of coming out with, here's what this big name player is, or here's what some of these people are like. Even if we can't launch the game or start doing that, I would love if that was a way that we could start building some of the excitement with the game, even just having some leaks and partnering with there's a few more content creators that are coming out this year, like to partner with some of the content creators for just being able to drop some. So, I mean, I play the Star Wars Unlimited card game, and they did that for spoiling new cards with new sets. If different people could be like, oh, hey, this is going to be Messi's price this year, this is going to be Pooch's price, this is like that could be a cool way to get people involved within the community and also kind of build some of the hype, in my opinion. But there may be other legal things connected with that too. But yeah, I agree with you. I'd love for there to be some early season stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna keep pushing for it. A couple other things just on my radar. Bring back the defensive stats. Obviously, make center defensive mids great again.
Good platform.
Just make
Listen,
Are you reading off of my list?
Yeah.
Listen, if they had aerial duels, I don't think that would have been as crazy of a swap.
Sport Tech, they usually track duels, just regular duels. And I think that'd be fun. Not just aerial duels, Anyway, I don't want to jump ahead. But
Yeah, that's next time. Yeah, we'll get that in a second.
Schuyler's like reading off my entire list. So
It's okay. You can just go ditto.
I don't think we're in the minority. I mean, I don't know. I like that those kind of players were fantasy relevant and bonus point magnets, that kind of thing. It just feel like
something's gotta make these players viable. Like
right.
It's picking the same 7 to 8 mids. That pool every week gets old. So, it'd be nice if like we could pick Marky Delgado, or somebody like Ronan now who isn't as much in the attack, but probably has like a ton of recoveries or something, like we already have the passing stat, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like make those D mids viable. That's what I've been like stumping for like 5 years. So anyway, go on. Sorry.
No, I'll do my part and see if we can get some of those reincorporated for next season.
Cool.
But yeah, and then too, just something that I think is always kind of a gray area is just kind of a clearly defined plan of action when games are postponed or suspended. I mean, that's
that'd be cool.
Something that isn't really touched on in the rules and the terms and conditions, and it's been brought up anytime that we are, when we're trying to scramble, figure out what course of action are we going to take, and a lot of times we revert to what we've done previously, which are unlock the players if there's more games left in the round, and then cancel that game out for the rest of the season, pretty much, just to avoid any confusion. And so I feel like there should be kind of a clearly defined plan of action that people aren't just wondering what's going to happen. Are the players going to get unlocked? When will they be unlocked? That kind of thing. And so something just stated in the rules, something as simple as, hey, here's what's going to happen when XYZ happens.
I feel like Reid and I have fielded this many times, but from my perspective, and I'm sure someone will bring up like an individual instance, from my perspective, it's seemed relatively consistent. What I think people unfairly question is like the timeliness of it, right? Like, oh, well, but I find that, like I said, to be unfair. Like you said, there's not a whole, organization of people running fantasy and sitting and waiting to see if NYCFC is finally going to kick off at, 12 a.m. Eastern time or whatever. And, then they'll be, it is understandable, but, frustration of like, oh, well, if I knew that they'd be unlocked, I would have taken this person from that day. But I think like just giving it, I don't even know what buffer you could give it, but I feel like that's something that has come up a lot for Reid and I is when a game gets postponed and then unlocks, the next day or whatever, and people are upset that they couldn't. I find that to be a little, I don't want to say ridiculous because I get it, right? No one's complained this year more than me, but unfair. I think it's unfair to assume that someone, can just hit a button and all of those players unlock. So maybe just like, this is great transparency, and not everybody watches or listens to this, but maybe, some sort of like transparency around how that process goes so that there's something where people could look. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even know what one would go about that, but just like I said, sometimes I think people just think there's a switch you can flip and whole team's unlocked, and we know that that's not the case, and it will never be. So, you know what I mean?
I mean, oh, of course I do. I mean, people think I can flip a switch and add an assist to,
Right.
you know, Santi Rodriguez or whatever. It's just like,
Sure.
why is he missing this assist? Can't you go in and do? I can't, but I can
Yeah.
try
I
to
feel
figure
like-
out what's going on with it.
I feel like the kid that just got told Santa Claus isn't real.
Oh, yeah, there's not flipping switches.
We had one more great question in chat that I wanted to make sure I asked before we do go on, because it seems like we're just chomping at the bit to talk about what we hope to see. But I thought this was a great question from Simplement, and he just wants to know your take. Do you feel like budgets rise too quickly in the current state of the game? Like, do people build a budget too quickly, and does budget, as Ashley alluded to, kind of become irrelevant too early? It's probably not viable to make it never become irrelevant, but do you think they go up too quickly?
I do feel like there's, especially this season, it feels like we've got bukus of cash. I will say though, I think it was, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, then I think I maxed out my budget, and I might not be as rich as a lot of you guys out there, but I mean, I've built my bankroll up pretty good, and I think that there was 1 week, maybe you guys were the same, but it was pretty close to being maxed out, just going with all the top studs at every position and top switcheroos or whatnot. But yeah, I think that that's always going to be something that can maybe be looked at as the formula to see why the prices rise the way they do and who gets price rises for what. Looks like Christian's ready chomping at the bit to say something over there.
While you're looking at that, that formula, can you
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
pass it along maybe?
Now, what we need is let's slow down the budget gain, but then we'll implement fantasy DPs where you can have one player who doesn't count toward your budget. But
That'd be fun.
Let's bring back vice captains too.
no, we already broke the game. We already broke the game. Can't.
These are terrible ideas. All right.
Can't do that again. No, this is that. This is that. Well, I'll be respectful of your time, Schuyler. You're welcome to hang around with us for the next segment. But before we go, we talked about the contact us, which I have never sent anything through the contact us section. But what is the best way for players of the game to provide feedback, constructive feedback for MLS? We'll of course have a survey this year that we're happy to pass on. But just what's the best way for people to send feedback when they have it?
Yeah, so I mentioned that contact us form. I think you go to frequently asked questions or something on the fantasy page. I don't have it pulled up here, but
I've shared
somewhere over there
those.
where the terms and conditions are, then down at the bottom it says contact us, and there's a form you can fill out, put your email address in there. And like I said, those don't just go out into space. Like, somebody's on the receiving end of that, somebody has to read it. And so if they get enough emails and you're loud enough about something, then they're gonna bring it up to whoever the powers that be are. So yeah, I'd say that's where the league wants that contact to go. Obviously, they've got it there for a reason. And then yeah, like, reach out to me. I mean, you guys have done it before. There's been several people that if they've got an issue with a prize that they haven't gotten, or a question about why didn't Santi Rodriguez get credited for an assist, that kind of thing. Yeah, reach out to me, and I can run it up the ladder as best I can. I try to remind you guys that I don't have a set like switch, like Ashley said, that I can just like make it happen, but I can at least try to get it to
so disappointing.
try to get it in front of the eyes that need to see it. And so yeah, I mean, if you want to reach out to me on Discord, DraftKicks, I'm on Twitter at DraftKicks. So happy to help where I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us to talk about that. Up next, we're going to be talking about our personal wish list at this point. And so stay tuned for that. And maybe Schuyler will join us to chit-chat there too.
Yeah, I'll hang around a little bit longer.
Cool. We can do that.
So I don't have I mean,
No hot dates.
Yeah, maybe if you take the
it's Wine Wednesday usually tonight, so half price bottles of wine, but yeah, not tonight.
Wine Wednesday.
maybe if you
do
take
that.
the
Not for me,
experts
for the wife.
we'll send you a
Yeah, I was
fax.
gonna say, keep it down. She's right there.
I don't know. I'm coming up on the host invitational though.
We can see.
Oh
I
no,
mean,
no, Schuyler has a huge lead on the host invitational. Never mind.
it goes down to a playoff. Don't worry.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
playoff.
we do playoffs with here, so
Yeah.
we do.
I
I'm
went,
not
oh,
even in
Good.
that
I can take him
conversation.
down then.
Heading,
Yeah,
heading
I,
for the regular. I'm
Theoretically,
heading for
you
the
could.
supporter shield.
I choked on a couple of them. Yeah, you can
You
definitely do
are.
that. I've been tracking that. Like we've never had a repeat champion, so we'll see. There's I don't know. I don't think Wojo's won before, so if you or I get it, then we'll have a repeat and we'll see what happens. But we'll see. That's a fun league. That's got to be one of the more competitive ones in the game. So that's a fun one. All
Host
right.
invitational?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's competitive.
Shut up.
Some heavy hitters.
Kick you out.
But that's Christian's not a big head-to-head guy, so he's gonna laugh about it.
I suck.
Head-to-heads are so it's definitely it's a little bit of a coin flip. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a little bit of luck involved for sure.
They're fun. All right, let me.
What am I, like 30th or something in that?
The host
My
league?
favorite
No,
is looking
you're
at black
bad.
and
You're
red.
ninth. You're ninth.
Black and
Oh,
red is my favorite
well,
in that league.
oh. I'm ninth? How did I get
You're
to
ninth in the
Wow.
host league. Yeah, that one's
I was
super
like-
tight.
Yeah.
That one's super tight.
What
It's
about
so much
what
fun.
about the Pro Rel Champions
Well,
League?
I'll
I
have
think
to,
I'm
I'll
like
have to look that one up. We're gonna talk-
24th or something.
Hush. We're
Oh,
gonna
we
talk
can
about
talk
stuff.
about
Doesn't
Pro
matter.
Rel.
I could have looked at that.
Yeah, we can
Sorry-
definitely talk
sorry
about
for
Pro
wasting
Rel.
your time. I didn't
All
mean
right,
it.
here we go. All right, and welcome back to our second segment. Social is out again for this second half of the show. Please do retweet that if you would be so kind. But we just had a great conversation with Schuyler, just sort of about the rules that came out this year, the motivations, what MLS looks for, how you can provide feedback, some of his on his radar right now for changes. So if you've not listened to that and you're just jumped straight to this point of the show, go back and take a listen to that. It was a great conversation. But now we are going to talk about some of our personal hopes and dreams for the future of MLS Fantasy with the changes or whatnot, and especially this is great after hearing from Schuyler some of maybe what maybe puts us into a bit more of a realistic realm right there. So Tyler, we'll just start out with you. Just like what are you looking for? What are you hoping to see?
Absolutely no changes. No.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, that's
Tyler,
fair.
no notes.
We had that as a status quo. That's fine.
No, I think for me, I do really like the idea of aerial duels. I think that is going to be a really good stat when you guys can eventually figure that out. And I do want to see that added. One thing that I was thinking to make like goalkeepers more viable is like long distance pass connections. Like if it's I don't know, something to do with that where you can, if you pass it over a certain amount of feet or yards and your
Hang time.
player traps it.
Hang
Yeah,
time.
hang time. Something like that though.
Distribution? You mean like distribution?
Yeah, I don't
Like-
know. Yeah, kind of. I'm just trying to think of a way to make it where goalkeepers aren't just saves and clean sheet.
Well, I
will
mean,
say-
if
Just
they
saves
add
and playing.
recoveries,
Sure. I will
Yeah.
say, I've never seen that stat, Tyler, but as a former collegiate level goalkeeper, I get so frustrated in any level of sport when there's a goalkeeper that does not distribute efficiently. So I'm gonna
you
bandwagon.
mean when they send it to the center circle every time?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
frustrating.
But for me personally, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but I actually really like the idea of taking away second assist because of the changes to the key passes that have been introduced.
Mhm.
If that key pass change wasn't introduced, I think I would be more frustrated that second assist wasn't or was taken away. But with the adjustment to it, I think it's like more understandable why it was removed, and it's helpful because you can still see that they're getting
Yeah.
credit for it without getting a full assist point, like the full 3 assist points.
Sure.
And I know this is going to be a hot topic when I say this. I don't mind Madranda's not being in the game anymore.
See, now you're reading
God,
ahead
I
and
hate
talking
it.
about other people's lists.
I mean,
Hey,
yeah.
hey, I don't mind it not being in there though. Like, I get the idea. Like, your team got scored on. Why should you get credit for being subbed out? Now,
That's not
I
what they
do.
get
I
for.
No,
think
They get
Skylar's
credit
with
for
you
no,
on this one.
keeping
I'm
a
No,
just
no,
sub
no,
saying.
out.
no. Let me finish though. I do want reverse Madrandas though. So if
He's
your team was
hijacking my
scored,
list. Okay, sorry.
I'm not. I didn't even look at that.
Oh, all right.
I'm
Apologies.
saying, like, if you sub in after your team has been scored on and then you don't get scored on while you're on the field, I think then you should be able to get points. You know, like the reverse. Like if
60
you
In
if
a
you got
6-minute scenario, they have to get 60.
yeah, like if someone gets subbed on early, like an injury
That's-
sub.
I mean, I think that's just you made the same
I get-
argument for the other way around, though.
Yeah, I don't like. No. Next.
I don't know. I don't
Boo!
like
Oh,
the other
sorry.
one though.
I don't have a problem. You liked that change, didn't you, Skylar?
Yeah, I did like the change. As far as no Madrondas, no clean sheet if your team conceded. Just felt like it kind of in line with the secondary assists. I just feel like if you get a stat that's tracked by MLS, I mean, if Messi gets a secondary assist, his assist total on MLSsoccer.com goes up. So why can't we get fantasy points for that? And that's on that same note, then if your team doesn't get a clean sheet, then they're not going to show a clean sheet as for like on team clean sheet. So why are you getting fantasy points for that?
I guess that's fair.
Yeah, I
That's
wasn't.
my-
I wasn't.
Well, it would be fair. It would be fair if center backs were actually not devoid of like
Sure.
point generating actions. You know what I mean? Like now it's look, I'll wait till my turn, but the lack of a Madranda hurts more now because of the points that were taken away.
But how often were center
Right.
backs actually subbed early though? It's usually outside backs.
Well, sure,
Yeah.
but there have been center backs and
Yeah.
outside backs, but the outside backs, there's only like 3 of them in the league right now that are actually
Outside
Sure.
backing.
outside backing. Anyway,
I will say that one was a sad one to see go, just mostly from a fun fantasy point of view. Like I'm not
it's
hugely
tradition.
invested in that one. It's like that's fine, it's gone. I know it was great, it was fun when it happened, but that's one that's like that's fine. I get it. I get why there was. So I'm not super mad about that one.
So for me personally, I've had a lot more fun this season, and I think the only reason that I'm really doing well is because I'm someone who likes to differentiate my team. I don't like to play the chalky picks. So I changed my team a lot to the left field picks, and they're more reliable this season with the changes that have been made than it was any other previous season. So I'm enjoying it because of that. I know that's not many people like that because a lot of people like to be chalky. But I have fun, and I'm having extra fun by being high ranked too. So I'll let Ashley continue after that. I'm here for a good time.
What's your ranking right now? Just out of curiosity.
I'm up at 13th right now.
Oh, okay. Creeping up on me, sitting at 10th.
Yeah. And my
Getting up there.
IRL buddy is overall 1. I've known him for over 20 years.
Oh, very cool. You got my
Your
up
son
and
is
coming,
it too?
yeah, up and coming Redpath, up and coming Draft Kicks Junior is at number 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been having that fun.
it was nice being
father-son.
number 1 for a little while.
I know.
A
Yeah,
couple
but
weeks.
Right.
The Discord
Yeah,
has
a
a
couple
great
weeks.
representation.
The Discord's been thriving top 10, but I will, Christian, because I know you're, living a sad face right now, but I'm sure Skylar can say this at one point, but you were round rank 1 and OR 1, not
Oh,
like
yeah.
the first week in the season. Do you know
Pure
what I mean?
luck. It was a fluke.
Yeah, but that was like several weeks in. That's a big, you should have that. I'll make you a plaque.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
a fantasy notch on your belt right there.
Oh yeah,
or a notch
Is
on
it-
your
is
fantasy
it really?
belt.
Is it really that big of a notch, though? Seriously.
I think
Pretty
so.
I mean, you guys are
Did you
just
vote?
you guys are just blowing smoke. All right,
Yeah.
all right.
That's
It
true.
was pure luck. I had no idea that was going to
You
happen.
can't
I
luck
didn't.
into both.
I mean,
I'll give
I
you luck
planned
into
for
both.
that every week. Okay, you guys, I planned for it every week, and it doesn't happen every week. It was pure
Sure,
luck.
sure.
Anyway,
Ashley.
I'm kind of haven't thrown my sense in, so give me a hot second. The reason I missed Madranda's is because I love finding a game within the game, right? So that's something that kind of like we were, Reid was saying, maybe we make price rises a little harder. That's a game within the game, right? Trying to look for the players that will price rise consistently and also score points. That's a game within the game. I kind of viewed the Madranda shutout as another mini little game that was fun. But I very much agree with the like statistical reasoning behind it. But also, if that player helped contribute to a shutout and then they've left the game and then everybody else, fucks it up. There's two sides of that coin. I'm not attached to it. But like I said, the thing that made me the most bummed about it was just because it was another, kind of game within the game. I really float back and forth about second assist. I like completely agree with what Schuyler said, where if I'm looking at the app and it tells me that Messi got a second assist, but I don't get a second assist because we're not tracking that in fantasy, that is frustrating. However, I feel like that is a stat that is so often like not skill based. Like there's so often where, Messi's not a good example, so let's not use him. I don't know, Joao Paulo passes a slow rolling controlled ball to Albert Rusnak, who whips in a beautiful cross, and then Jordan Moore scores a goal, right? Joao Paulo needed to pass the ball to him, but it wasn't anything. It wasn't a 3-point worthy pass. There's no way to say, oh, it was a meaningful second assist or it wasn't. So you have to give the point for both the mediocre passes and then the build-up play. So I think
and then you can have like corners that are flicked on by a defender and scored.
Right. Exactly. So, and there's sometimes where there's many times where the second assist is equally contributing, necessary to make the good assist or whatever. But I really kind of land where, like I said, what Schuyler said, where I miss it in the sense that I think if it's being kept track, the point should be in the game as well. Another one that I miss is penalties earned. And really, that one is also can get a little gray, but I just remember how fun, and again, this is one season, so I don't know if this is practical. Do you guys remember Zlatan's season? Reid and I would just go to town on this, where Zlatan would earn a penalty and then take a penalty, and he'd walk away with an obnoxious amount of points. Now, I know in EPL fantasy, if you earn the penalty and you make the penalty, you only get the penalty made points. And there's, a lot there. I think there was a point where if you earned the penalty, but the player missed it, you still got the earned penalty. There's a lot of ways to go wrong with earned penalties, but that's one that I always really enjoyed. But I will also kind of defer back to and agree with what Tyler was saying earlier, where the way that key passes has changed, I think offsets that a little bit, but it was
does
definitely
count as one key pass, I believe.
yeah. So, but it was definitely something that I kind of missed from the game just because there's been specific players that have made it more fun. And there was also, I think a rationality to someone getting, completely taken out and that, them following through on the play or whatever. But then there's the times where, the less genuine side of soccer comes out and perhaps it wasn't, the most sporting way to earn a penalty and we still get points. But like I said, that one for me it can be more of a gray area, but I do kind of miss it. And then lastly, what?
Sorry to interrupt, but I think doesn't Premier League, anybody who plays Premier League fantasy, don't they award that as an assist, a penalty earned?
Only if they
Yes.
make it.
Oh, okay. Right.
Oh, is it
okay.
really? It
Yeah.
used to be
Yeah.
regardless.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that
say I'm
makes sense. Yeah, if they make
85%
it.
positive. It's only if they make it.
I
Yeah.
see.
If the penalty, sorry, if whoever is taking the penalty makes it, then that person receives the
That
3
could be a fun idea
Yeah,
for
sure.
a way
I
to include that.
I like that rationale, right?
That way, if you score your own, you can't get an assist. But if
Correct.
someone else takes it, you do get an assist. I like that idea, actually.
Yeah, I feel like it's fair. It's kind of
What
like
a
to your
workshop
point,
we
Ashley.
just did, guys.
Feels kind of like what you said, Ashley. I mean, you got to give some credit where if a guy's on a breakaway, I mean, he's contributing to that goal. He gets wiped out. I mean, he did the work to get there, to get in that spot. So,
Yeah, for sure.
give credit where credit's due.
For sure. And it is to a certain extent, if by the law of the game, if you will, assisting that goal, right? Like earning that penalty is providing the opportunity to make the goal. So, but yeah, that's just something that I've, missed to an extent, but I understand how kind of messy it can get. And then lastly, just to follow back, and I know that there's so much more that goes into this, and there's so much that Schuyler, you have done, but just to attempt to have some sort of consistent, accessible verbiage and consistency on locks and cancellations and those types of things, because I am, in a position where I know it's either going to happen or it's not. Like I know that there's nothing we're going to, tweet at or message that's going to change it. And I know that no one's sitting around being like, well, who cares? Something is trying to happen, right? But having some sort of guideline to it, I think would be really helpful for the game, because there's, always kind of an exception, if you will, I think. And again, I know it's hard because sometimes it's delayed, sometimes it's canceled. If it's postponed, obviously that always gets, canceled out. But and again, I apologize because I don't have a great suggestion for what that would look like, but having something somewhere that is specific for people to access, so even if they don't like what happened, they still know what's going to happen, right? And then this is also really loaded and there's so much more that goes into it, but I'd love to see teams highlighting, a fantasy to some extent, or the league also. There's so many other things that the league promotes. So I know adding another thing would be difficult, and there's, not a ton. There's a ton of people that play. I guess that's not fair, but I know it's not, fantasy football. We're not going to have our own TV station,
And
probably
professional players playing
voted.
often.
Yeah. But
No more
but-
Quincy Amarikwas,
No, but you know
Right.
what? When I met Brooks Lennon, he knew how good he was in fantasy. Like, there's things that I do think if just flamed a little bit, that they could burn brighter. But like I'm gonna get a ton of shit for this, especially since Tyler's here. But like the Sounders have, I think, 3 players in the top 15. Like, there's so many top 20. Look, Tyler, I can see that you're looking at your screen there.
Yeah, 3
But,
of the top 15.
like, yeah,
Oh, I didn't count myself.
yeah. So I wish that there was a way, even just a little social media intern could do that. But
I saw that LA Galaxy does that.
LA Galaxy has
Every
been
game
doing
they
it.
post like the top 5 or something like that players
Yeah.
in their league.
Do they still do that?
I
They
think
were
they
doing
do
it
at
this
all their
year.
games, their home
Yeah.
games.
They do it
They
in
did
state.
it last year all season.
Sweet. I might have made an appearance.
There you go.
I think Verks told me about that last year. He's like, send me a screenshot of some fancy guys
Yeah.
in the top 5 at like the Rose Bowl or something.
Yeah.
They showed it at the Rose Bowl. Yeah, I thought
I
that
think
was
that
super cool.
like
So
something as simple as that could be huge promotion for our game.
Houston used to do that whenever they used to
Yeah.
announce at the home games. They used to announce the leaders
Yeah.
of their like that week
Yeah.
for their mini league. Yeah.
Like I said, I know this is just a little niche, right? Like I'm not trying to like blow up MLS Fantasy, but it's nice to see it reflected, I feel like, in the teams. Not everybody gets to talk to Brooks Lennon, who's randomly standing outside of a Sounders game afterwards to tell them that he's one of your favorite fantasy players. So would be nice to see the teams and and the league kind of do it, buy in a little bit more, but it's not going to change how I play or anything. It would just be kind of nice. Also, my husband talks about it way too much in social circles, so it'd be really nice if we could have it, kind of affiliated in some way
Brag.
because
He's supposed to brag.
he brags all the time, you guys. He's not. It's ridiculous. But that's kind of all I got. I always seem to understand the changes and not get too mad. And obviously, I won't talk about the login thing because
Facebook.
we all know. I'm never doing it again. Don't worry about it.
Christian, is there anything else on your list?
Well, let me check.
How much time you got?
There's a couple. Madrandas. That's on my list.
What are you talking
Anyway, yeah, I know. I had something to add, but in the interest of time, I won't add it. Pretty much, I was a big fan of the mid forward position, adding players
Mhm.
to the game that could be slotted in as a forward or a mid.
Mhm.
I suppose you could mess around with that with other positions too, but I thought that was kind of cool. It just kind of opened up, it actually made players a little more viable and it made it more flexible. Either that or like a type of slot. I think what used to be like you could change your formation to like a different whatever,
Like a flex slot?
Yeah,
flex slot or whatever. Yeah.
that would be.
I don't know
fine.
that I like the
Okay, slot.
idea of a player classification of mid or forward better than I like the slot idea, frankly.
Hold on. Can I roll with this for 1 second? What if,
Sure.
kind of like a vice captain, you could make a player again? I'm getting way too dreamy here, and I am acknowledging that up front. But what if
These
you
are the
could,
outlandish ideas.
what if you could like slot a person, maybe like a bench designation in some way, and if that person scored higher than someone who was starting for you, but you designated them as, like I said, let's just say, don't scratch your face, Reid.
Get an itch.
That person, oh, okay, that person could come in. You know how one of the things that we're always the most bummed about is, God, I left 15 points on my bench, or I left 22 points. And part of the strategy of the game is knowing who to start and who to bench. But wouldn't that be kind of cool if you could like flex play someone?
No, that
The,
wouldn't be
the
cool
only
at all,
the only
actually.
problem I see with having a flex slot or having a player who you could assign to a forward or midfield position is that since we have different point values generated by the positions that you're in, that could create a discrepancy in how many points a player generated based upon where the individual played them. And so it would be hard to say that, like, oh, Pooch has this many points because if he was being played as this, he would be earning one. If he was playing that, it'd be another. So that's a cool idea.
100%
I think it'd be
right.
difficult. Yeah.
100% right. And now that you brought that up, forget I even brought it up because the whole back end, I'm familiar with the whole like data part of the app. Yeah, it wouldn't work. Okay, on to the next wild idea. And that is, oh wait, I don't have any more wild ideas. Actually, I will reiterate. Make defensive mids viable again. Please make defensive mids viable. Please do something like, my idea is to add 2 clean sheet points for a defensive midfielder.
No.
To make it 2 instead of 1, or to make it like
to add 2, so 3. They get 3 points if they get it.
But how can you classify who's a defensive midfielder?
Yeah.
Be the same way we classify them as forwards and midfielders. I mean,
Sure.
it would have
you
to
already
be a
have
designation. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
It
probably
would
would need
have
a
to be
whole
a
new
designation.
formation. You'd need a whole new formation
Yeah.
slot to like force
See.
the defensive mid every week.
Yeah.
Now you're adding a little more work to my play at the beginning of the season,
kind of
trying to
like, no,
throw
Okay,
that
so
center
so
defense.
forget I said it. Forget it because I don't even forget it.
I
All right.
like the idea,
Just
but
bring back
you have to force.
bring back some stats, some point earning stats for those positions, make them more viable. At least give them like, the I'd like to see maybe like a 5-point floor on most like decent number 6s. All right. Like it would be nice to be able to pick a 6, because frankly, like half the player pool isn't even viable throughout the season because of that. Like, I don't want to say half. I want, half, true, because like half don't play, but Okay, fine. There's a percentage of players that is like a lot where they aren't viable ever in the game. And so I would like to see a way to make them viable because player pool shrinks as this season
I
goes.
think if tackles were back, that would help a lot.
Tackles,
Tackles and
recoveries,
aerial duels. I think
recoveries,
you keep recoveries out
regular
because it's kind
duels.
of hard to tell sometimes.
regular duels. I'm a big fan of that. Regular duels. I know Sport Tech tracks them for Bundesliga. I don't know if they do for us, but whatever. And I echo, I'm a second assist guy. Thank you very much. Carlos Heel loves me for saying that. What else? Duels one, yep. Madrid, yep. That's about it. Penalty earned, yep.
There we go. So I'll round it out, and I'll go ahead and say a lot of the stuff that I hope to see or would love to see in the fantasy game is probably more focused on things that would fall to the provider, and so maybe aren't really within our realm to change, but definitely things that I would love to see, and if there's a way to advocate for them, I would be 100% behind it. Before I get into that, I will just say I'll definitely take a look at some of the other stats that MLS does keep to see if there's anything that piques my interest or things that I think that would be a good homework for everyone listening is if you see the stats that MLS is keeping that aren't in the game and you think one's fantasy viable, like definitely submit that. I think that would be a great exercise of just the kind of stats we want to see have a point value attached to them. For me, one, just because I focus so much on all the leagues that I put together with the Fantasy Boss network of stuff, is I'd love to just see some enhanced support for people who manage leagues. So like for league managers, just primarily focused on communication with the players in your league. That's the biggest barrier for me every year is like trying to get the pro rel leagues going or even trying to manage some of these more big community leagues is it's a big effort to put it on, but then it can be difficult to get that connection. And if there's a way for MLS to either highlight some of those leagues or partner with some of those leagues who do provide prizes, because that's something that we do is with my leagues is we do designate some to be prize leagues, being able to more easily communicate with the other players in a safe way, of course it would have to be, but that would be just some enhanced way to communicate with those players, to be able to reach out to them, even renewing them in leagues. Just some enhanced commissioner or league functions would be something I would love to see come from the game that I think could really help make league management more active and get groups of people, small groups together to actually to encourage that. So I'd love to see something like that.
Schuyler, what would you do if you weren't you? What would you want?
What?
Schuyler?
Wait, what's up?
Oh, sorry. What would
Cut
if you weren't you in your role? What is something that you would want to see? Like if you removed yourself, what you?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like I hit on a few of those in the last segment, but there is one that I didn't touch on. One that I feel like is within reason is start or not locking players until the actual match kicks off, because obviously MLS is notorious for match time being 7 o'clock and then their match doesn't kick off till 7:20.
Yeah.
I still want that extra 20 minutes to be able to move some things around based on current happenings. I mean, if we're truly trying to have a rolling lockout, like let's actually lock players at their start time. And I feel like that might even just be as simple as not starting the, fantasy, whatever rolling points until their game locks. Like I feel like that's something that a stat provider should be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't that essentially fix the postponement cancellation as well?
Yeah, it probably would, wouldn't it?
Unless the game started, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh,
Good point.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It stopped
But
happening.
yeah, I mean, if it's
Yeah.
right.
You're right. Well, yeah.
But yeah, it's a little thing, but it just gives the hardcore players, I mean, even the newer players, more time to tinker with their lineups. If you realize that MLS games started at a certain time, oh crap, I missed the deadline, but no, you didn't. You've still got this extra like 15, 20-minute window until the game actually kicks off.
I used to
Guy
call that
always
the-
complained about that.
Yeah. Fox Sports one time.
I mean, another thing that I'd love to see is I think any stat that a player is able to generate points from should be a stat that we can filter for in the game. That is, we have a very limited filters of what we can change, but back in the day we had that, and I just think that's something I would love to see, is that if they can earn a point with that stat, I want to be able to filter by that stat to see what players are just great at or leading in that stat, at least bonus points. I'd love to be able to filter by bonus points, if that was ever a possibility. If there was a way to distinguish between offensive bonus points and defensive bonus points, I'd love to be able to filter like that, just to kind of see, because that helps with some of those decisions. So I would love to see that. I'd love to have us bring back like a home page launch dashboard, that instead of just going straight to our teams, if it had that first landing page where it sort of gave you a quick little shot of like, here was the best captain, here were the starting players, here's some of the top leagues that like the high players with the highest points. I mean, back in the day, maybe a couple of providers ago, like we had that page, and I thought that was a great little landing page to get a quick snapshot, maybe discover some new leagues, get some little information, and that was a super helpful thing right there. Price teases I agree with, and then this change was teased at the beginning of the year, and then you took it away from me, Schuyler. But for leagues that do have high engagement and high interaction, if there was support for those leagues from MLS, I'd be okay with that too. I assume you
talking
guys
about in regards to prize pools and just, yeah, I think that was a good idea. And I think after a little bit of consideration and kind of playing some scenarios out, then it just became a little bit risky to make that commitment. You start thinking about players colluding and starting leagues to, throwing a bunch of bots in there so that there's prizes. I don't know. I'm sure there's ways. To get around that, but I think that once it started really kind of getting played out, it was like there's a few more scenarios or factors that might have made it a little bit risky to
as long as
to
the
run
conversation wasn't, how many leagues did Reid have again? How much money would we be sending him?
Right.
So yeah, humble brag there. But I mean, kidding, not kidding. Like if there's vetting that goes on in the background, happy to partner with something like that. We are real people here. But no, that's mostly it. It's just I like, I mean, you guys have had some great ideas with that. I mean, the small one, if we could integrate like get Weatherbug or something, integrate some of the rain chances, and then maybe give people a helpful idea, like Thrawn does for us in chat, of like, hey, this has got a 80% chance of severe thunderstorms coming through Texas tonight. Like, oh, maybe I don't want to get that guy. Just have that right in the app, right in the game to see those things. That could be a fun little tip. But yeah, a lot of my stuff just focuses on that league development, league community. I'd love for there to be legacy leagues where you just rejoin. That would, again, with the pro rel stuff that we do, just having people automatically join a league, being able to add or remove someone like that would help make some of that easier. But that's probably more of a me thing. But
I did think of something, but I don't think that you guys would be able to do it. Is like when it was Opta, we could go to like FBref or FOTMob and find the stats that players would have. But with Sport Tech, they don't like have a website where we can go and see, oh, this guy has this many passes at this percentage.
Yeah.
But it's really useful if like a player isn't in the game to be able to go and look up that stuff to see how they would have done.
I see in chat people are celebrity public leagues. That could be fun. Yeah, Weeby doesn't play. That's a great idea, Dan. But Weeby has been notorious for like starting and stopping, and like he's like the
he's
king
a
of the
troll.
wooden spoon. Yeah.
He's a troll.
He's fun, but that's what he does. That is. Let's see here. Yeah, a lot of some similarities in some of the things that we talked about in there. But anything else that you guys have thought of, or again, anything else, Schuyler, that is on your personal wish list?
It seems kind of silly. It seems just like a little moot side kind of fun thing to have in the game. But several years ago, some of you guys might remember, you could actually track your historical stats. So your historical finish. I'd love to see that back in the game.
Yep.
I'd love to see almost like a virtual trophy case, so to speak, like some of these
Yeah.
other like ESPN or Yahoo does with some of their fantasy games. If you win, you get a trophy. If you win a week, you get like a medal or something. So just, I mean, something cool, just a little added incentive
Yeah.
for something to kind of track your fantasy history. I mean, I'd have quite a little haul after 20 years, right? That might
Yeah.
You got some
Yeah.
banners and flags back there already, so
Yeah.
That's right.
I
Got a few
I get
things.
into little tips with my husband who plays too, right? Like, I'll be like, this is the highest week rank I've ever been, and he'll be like, no, it's not. Remember when? But we can't prove it. We don't know. We didn't
Yeah.
screenshot it. We both
Yeah.
remember it differently, right?
Yeah, so I think that'd be
That'd be
cool. It'd be fun, but no, in general, I mean, I love all the just bouncing ideas around, and this is something you said it, Reid. Like it might be a little bit too early to have this conversation, but I feel like it's good to go ahead and get it out there, and then that way things are already kind of in the works. Something that we can revisit at the end of the season and just say, hey, these are like the main talking points that we want to see. Let's see how the rest of the season goes, and then say, hey, let's see what we can do as far as putting what needs to be in front of the powers that be's eyes, get it in front of them.
That's absolutely. Well, we will 100% have a survey at the end of the year so that people can provide feedback. Definitely, we'll focus on stats that we'd love to see in the game, because I think that's going to be that's great low hanging fruit. I think for what we could look at to help the game evolve, especially with this new vendor, and so that people listening, you can expect to see that as we come near the end. I appreciate everyone who joined. Who put in some questions. I know we didn't get to everything, but appreciate the involvement that we had. Appreciate you so much, Schuyler, for coming to hang with us the whole time tonight and chat through all this stuff. I mean, I know we don't all get to. It's been a while since we've been able to geek out over all this, and so it's a nice way to sort of warm back up before the season kicks off.
Thanks, Schuyler.
Does
absolutely,
anybody
it's
want
been
to
fun.
plug anything before we go? Let's do it that way this time.
No.
Discord.
Does.
Is anything for you, Schuyler, that you want to shout out?
No, I'm ready to get the fantasy fellas back on the pitch. We got 10 days. So like I mentioned earlier, just we'll probably start seeing some of these newcomers trickle in hopefully this week, and it's go time again. Ready to get back out there, finish strong. Like I said, I'm 10th overall. I haven't touched top 10 in several years now. So should be a fun finish.
It was just mentioned in chat that you're the only one to. No, that can't be right. That you're the only one to win fantasy twice. No, we had the decade of the Brandonsons, so I mean that can't be right.
Yeah,
so
Brendan and
the deal with me winning twice was back in 2011. There were actually 3 seasons, so they split it. Like the first half of the season, second half of the season, and then
Yeah.
the whole overall. And so I won one of the mini seasons and then won the overall thing.
That makes sense. There we go.
So, I mean, I didn't mind that because you had 3 grand prizes to play for, right?
Yeah. That's great.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight to listen. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will be back on Monday to give a preview of round 23. It's going to be fun. So just stay tuned for everything that we have coming out. And until then, good luck.